Okay, we have food, but there's nowhere to sit.
Cheers.
It is freezing in here. Absolute disaster. And yes, that was some of our real-time thoughts from onboard MSC Meraviglia during a recent sailing from the Brooklyn Cruise Terminal, where we went down to Port Canaveral, Nassau, and Ocean Cay. We had lots of comments and questions, and we've had time to reflect now, so we thought it best to come and wrap up this experience from MSC Meraviglia. So let's get into it. But be sure to stick around until the end, because we're going to reveal the thing that we think really saved this cruise experience for us.
We won't get into every single detail about this sailing or ship, but we're going to touch on some of the broader aspects of this cruise. But we'll get into a few things at the end that are more specific. If we missed something, ask us about it in the comments.
And keep in mind, we love to travel, especially cruise, so any reviews we have are just our opinion at that time, because we recognize that we're very fortunate to be able to travel and share our experiences with you. We hope we're able to inform you enough, whether that helps you make some of your travel decisions, or you can just sit back and enjoy the videos as we take you along with us. So first, let's talk about booking our first cruise with MSC. Booking with MSC was quite the experience. Our travel agent looked after most of the initial booking, which went quite smooth. However, when it came to adding our personal information and booking excursions and eventually checking in online on the website, things took a bit of a turn. While most cruise line websites are fairly similar, MSC was by far the most finicky and frustrating one we've ever encountered. We faced numerous errors and just a less than smooth operation throughout the whole process. Uploading our photos at check-in time was particularly troublesome and took us quite a few hours to complete, despite us being relatively tech savvy. So our recommendation is, if you encounter similar issues with the website, ask your travel agent to assist with as much as possible. They can probably do a few things behind the scenes with the cruise line directly.
On a positive note, MSC offers status matching. If you have loyalty status with another cruise line, you can visit the MSC Status Match website to submit your information and to see if your status carries over. We transferred our Royal Caribbean status with no problems. We'll include a link to the Status Match website in the description. So if you've done this or plan to, let us know what status you carried over and what it equated to with MSC.
Okay, let's talk about embarkation, because we heard mixed reviews about the embarkation process at the Brooklyn Cruise Terminal, so we opted for a late arrival time of 1 p.m., hoping to avoid the long lines. Now first, we drove to the port, so if you're planning to do the same, be aware that the parking is convenient. However, it is expensive at $45 US per day, so $315 for the week. You can reserve the parking ahead of time, so we'll leave a link for the parking site in the description. Despite completing our online check-in beforehand, we still found ourselves in a bit of a queue to meet with the staff ahead of time. They rechecked all of our documents and asked a few more questions before finally guiding us to the ship. The atmosphere was just a bit hectic in that crowded space, and it felt a little bit of a duplicate from what we already did online. So overall, not the smoothest start, but it wasn't horrible.
Once on board, things didn't immediately clarify. There was a lack of clear direction on where to go or what activities were available while we were waiting for our cabin to be ready. Luckily, we stumbled upon the spot to book dining and entertainment inside the Ocean Cay seafood restaurant just before it closed. It made us wonder though, where would we have gone if we hadn't stumbled upon it?
Yeah, when our cabins were finally ready, we encountered what seemed like a throwback to pre-pandemic times with this hybrid kind of muster drill. Instead of the streamlined process that we've become accustomed to, we had to go to our cabins, watch a safety video, call a phone number to confirm that we did that, and then wait as they called each deck to physically check into our muster station. It definitely felt a bit outdated, and it did slow down the excitement at the start of the vacation. Overall, while the embarkation process did have its challenges, we got on a little faster than expected and likely quite a bit quicker than those who had the earlier boarding times.
Now regarding the stateroom, we did book a standard inside stateroom for this sailing. While we usually prefer a balcony, we often choose an inside cabin when trying a new cruise line or on busy itineraries where we know we wouldn't spend much time in our room. The stateroom featured a firm queen bed and a small desk with a hard stool, a mini fridge, and a good-sized wardrobe with a few drawers and a safe. The bathroom was standard with a pod-style shower and decent storage. Overall, the room had plenty of space, but could have accommodated a small chair or even a love seat, as the only seating was the stool or the bed. We appreciate the twice daily service for our stateroom, and MSC still provides this, which is a nice change from other cruise lines that have reduced it to only once per day.
Okay, let's get into the all-important dining, and we'll start with the buffet.
Are you sure?
Yeah, let's talk about it. There's a bit of a story here, but you can look back at our previous vlogs to see how we dealt with the buffet, but sometimes you just encounter something that is so chaotic that it feels insurmountable at the time. And after reflecting on our buffet experience on Meraviglia, it's clear that it was undeniably the worst we've ever had. Despite the tips and tricks from fellow cruisers on how to navigate it, the sheer effort required to survive this buffet, it just was a bit overwhelming, and it felt like a game of Tetris gone wrong, perhaps.
Yeah.
So
Agreed.
now you can look back at our vlogs for real-time reactions at the time, but let's just say it was the low point of this cruise. The concept of putting people in a line, directing them to tables, seems pretty simple, yet it was a total miss. And while some moments were better than others, the specialty restaurants and the main dining room thankfully saved our dining experience on this ship. We know that sounds a bit dramatic to describe a buffet, but the reality is we need to be honest, and this was, in comparison to other cruise lines, the worst we've experienced, and they just haven't figured it out.
Let's talk about the main dining room. We requested and received a 5:30 p.m. dining time and a table for two and the same wait staff throughout our 7-night sailing. We dined there for 4 nights. The food fell into the not excellent but not horrible category. It was well presented with plenty of options, but it seemed designed to encourage guests to spend money at the specialty restaurants. Based on strong advice, we booked the specialty dining package and highly recommend doing the same if you're cruising on this ship.
Yeah, first we checked out Ola Tacos and Cantina. That was the first kind of specialty experience we had on the ship, and we did it for lunch on our first sea day, and we were immediately impressed with the food. You can book ahead for specialty dining here, or choose items from the menu, or just order a la carte.
We also ate at the Ocean Key Seafood Restaurant. We do have to mention the unique setup here. The large tables, likely meant for groups of 6 or more, were occupied by couples sitting on one side facing the kitchen. This arrangement, combined with the generic decor, wasn't particularly impressive. However, the food quality was great, and as a vegetarian, options are limited, but I found a pasta dish that I truly enjoyed.
Now if we move over to Butcher's Cut, this is the kind of classic steakhouse, and it delivered as expected. The food was good quality and the steaks were excellent. With the specialty dining option, you can choose from a set menu, but you also have the flexibility to add and upgrade items as you like. And there's a la carte options if you wish to customize your meal. The ambiance was cozy and inviting, and I think we agree this would be a top recommendation. And they even had some good options for vegetarians.
We also thoroughly enjoyed our time at the Brass Anchor pub. No reservations were needed, and you could simply walk in, find a seat, and order. Whether we stopped by for a meal or just to grab a drink, the pub was never overly busy, the food was consistently great, the atmosphere was warm and welcoming, making it one of our favorite places on the ship.
Now there are some other dining options on board like the sushi bar, but we didn't end up checking that out.
No. And most importantly, at least for us, there is the John Philippe Cafe. It's located on the promenade, and across was the John Philippe Crepe and Gelato. The coffee at the cafe is an extra charge, but it is convenient, and all the chocolates are of course an extra charge. Over at the Crepes and Gelato, there's more sweets, but they also have smoothies and protein drinks if you're looking for that sort of treat.
Now for a place where you can get coffee, drinks, and some snacks, you can head over to the Sky Lounge, which turned out to be one of our favorite spots on the ship. It has great views, and it's adults only. And it's adults only. It's adults only. We put that in there twice because it's so important to us. It often had relaxing music, and it was just a great atmosphere overall. It never felt crowded, and we highly recommend checking it out. Our only complaint is that we didn't find it until several days into the cruise.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to entertainment. Now, the main theater. We checked out production shows in the Broadway theater every night of this cruise. And while the performers were talented singers and dancers, we gotta say the shows did get a bit repetitive over the week.
It did.
The themes changed, but the overall vibe seemed similar each night. In a first for us on a cruise, we actually walked out of one show because it was just slow and the random acts were kind of included just so randomly that it just wasn't our cup of tea.
No. But the Carousel Lounge hosts 2 production shows in a stunning theater in the round setting, complete with impressive screen effects. These shows come with an extra charge, but you can save a few dollars by booking them before you board. We saw the Houdini show, which, to us, was the best production show of our cruise.
For sure.
And we also booked Rock Circus, but unfortunately it was canceled in the last night due to rough weather.
So I'm just going to mention that it was noticeable that in the main theater and in the Carousel Lounge, despite how great these performers themselves themselves were, someone was not maintaining things like the big display screens and the sets. For example, there were lots of burnt out pixels, and the equipment just didn't look like it was well maintained, and it was noticeable even to us as audience members. And it just felt like, despite all the work that these performers were putting into their shows, there was a lack of upkeep, and the venues and equipment just took away from the performances. Again, no fault of the performers at all,
Not at all.
but they deserve to have a nice set to go along with all the work that they're putting into it, I think. But just an observation we made.
There was a theme party almost every night, either on the pool deck or along the promenade. Some parties had themes that left us scratching our heads, but then there were others like the white party on the pool deck. The St. Patrick's Day parade on the promenade was particularly amusing. Still no idea what we actually witnessed, but it was hilarious and had everyone laughing, which is what really matters.
And just a note, we could not book any of the paid entertainment on the app. It had to be booked on the first day at the same location where you booked your specialty dining, which was in Ocean Cay for our sailing. There was no information ahead of time regarding this, so just FYI, you might have to search for that on your first day. Now, let's talk a little bit about other onboard activities, because like most large ships, there's plenty to do on Meraviglia at any given time. We usually enjoy spending a bit of time at the pools or in the hot tubs, but we didn't do much of that on this cruise. The pools were always very crowded, the hot tubs were particularly small, and even the indoor bamboo solarium, it was just always filled, particularly with families and small kids. I'm not even sure if small kids should be in hot tubs. Is that
I
safe?
don't think so.
But an observation. Whenever we did spend a few minutes near the main pool, it was always loud. Not necessarily from parties, but even the trivia games were just on full blast with the volume. It just made it impossible to relax near the pool at all. And you could even see how uncomfortable it was making people at times.
The horizon pool at the aft was a bit quieter but still crowded whenever the weather was nice. And we couldn't figure out why there were always loungers stacked up when it was clear there were not enough out for the guests.
Now for other activities, there's the ropes course, which Will checked out, and I wasn't sure if he'd make it down. And there's also the aqua park with 2 water slides, the sports complex for basketball and dance lessons. There's bowling, and there's several simulators like the F1 race cars, the flight simulator, the roller coaster simulator. These simulators, which all had different intensity levels, were quite fun, except for that one time we tried them right after dinner. Not a good idea.
No.
But keep in mind, many of these activities do come at an extra cost. Okay, let's talk about the ship itself, because MSC Meraviglia is huge and can accommodate over 5,700 guests, and it's one of the largest vessels in the MSC fleet. Meraviglia does mean wonder in Italian, apparently. We found it well maintained, but there were a few little things that stood out, like they would just leave dirty mops in the bathroom, and it just made it feel like there wasn't a whole lot of attention to detail with things like that. Now, MSC provides you with pool towels in your cabin and replenishes them as you need them. We ended up with quite a few towels in our cabin, which is great because we didn't have to hunt them down or check them out. Overall, the ship is beautiful, especially if you like a blingy, glossy look. Think crystal staircases, shiny surfaces, and tons of mirrors. Personally, I found it a bit sterile. Even with the Italian theming along the promenade, it just lacked a bit of character for me.
It must be a lot of extra work for the cleaning staff to keep everything looking pristine, which they did a great job at. And I usually enjoy looking at artwork on cruise ships, but on this one the artwork was very repetitive, especially in the stairwells.
Now the promenade, or the Galleria as it's called in MSC, and it's the LCD screen that runs the entire length of the ceiling that changes depending on the event or the port you're in. It's really nice and a really unique touch.
Yeah, I love that.
Now just quickly about the casino. It is big, however it does allow smoking, so for guests who don't want to be sitting in a smoky atmosphere, there's a handful of slot machines in the infinity atrium that you can use. Now we didn't spend much time in the casino as the fumes were a bit too strong for us, and the lack of ventilation it was too uncomfortable. However, in order to access the carousel lounge, you need to go through the casino, wait in the smoke until the doors open. It just was a poor design.
Yeah, big time.
There was also a hole in the floor that leads from the casino down to the deck 6 dining room entrance area, and the smell of smoke would just travel down there too. Kind of strange.
Now, other than the stressed crew on Embarkation and Disembarkation, throughout the crew seemed great. Perhaps a bit overworked, but always pleasant to us.
Now let's talk about the highlight of this cruise for us, and that's Ocean Cay. And why was it the highlight? Well, just to be there, enjoying the beaches, the lagoon, the food options, which are all included. If you have a drink package, it works on the island. It's great. You can find drinks, ice cream, coffee, all the essentials. Then, if you do want to take part in some of the water activities like kayaking and stand-up paddle boarding, the sea-doos, snorkeling, it was all there for a fee. Then there's the unique piece, which is their lighthouse, which offers tours during the day, which involves climbing 115 stairs, but the guide will provide you information about the island and the marine reserve since MSC took the island over. Then there's the lighthouse light show at nighttime, which is very unique. There's no fee, and it can be seen from the ship if you happen to be in a cabin facing that direction, or you can view it from the upper decks. There's 2 different shows, each about 10 to 15 minutes.
Yeah, the light show put to music is something you really shouldn't miss if you do go to Ocean Cay. Not being overly developed, having all the essentials to relax without the crowds on the ship, and some unique features like the lighthouse makes this the highlight, and it really did save our overall experience of this cruise. Overall, this was definitely the highlight of the sailing and really plays into our consideration about whether we would take another Caribbean cruise on MSC.
Okay, let's talk about disembarkation. We opted for the self-assist option where you handle your own luggage and supposedly you can be one of the first to disembark. Now, typically self-assist promises a swifter exit, but our experience was a little different. We found ourselves in a bit of a waiting game with the elevators to start off. After waiting about 15 minutes, we decided to take matters into our own hands and we hoofed it down the stairs from deck 9 to deck 5 with our luggage. Now, upon reaching the promenade, things got a little bit more chaotic. There were no signs, no staff to guide anyone. It was literally just a sea of people standing in what seemed like just a never-ending line. After about 5 minutes of waiting in some sort of line, we noticed that others were heading in the opposite direction, so we were confused and tried to get some answers, but we couldn't find any. Everyone just looked so confused.
So the issue that we had seen is that the ship requested everyone to vacate the rooms by 7 a.m. Yet the scheduled departure time stretched up until 9:30.
Yeah, and tensions definitely rose, and so did the volume of some of the staff, because finally they were directing some guests and some passengers were clearly trying to depart before their designated time, which didn't help with the crowds. We were shuffled from line to line, and eventually we were herded into an elevator, and that got us down to another corridor, this time through the dining area, and then we finally reached an exit. The entire ordeal ate up probably an hour of our morning.
Yeah.
The lack of clear signage, lack of staff, just the minimal communication, it just left us feeling like we were an inconvenience to them at this point. They just wanted to get us off so they could get the next people on. The term self-assist didn't quite match the experience of them bouncing us around until essentially we just stumbled across that exit that we found.
And comparatively, on other cruise lines, we breezed off the ship within 15 minutes.
The disembarkation process could definitely use some refining. Maybe some clear signage or just a more organized approach would better enhance that experience for all the passengers and probably the staff too.
Now again, overall the crew was really great. Nothing was remarkably bad about this sailing, but nothing was remarkably outstanding either. MSC may be just right for someone looking for a reasonably priced getaway, as long as your expectations match what you're paying for. We didn't hate it by any means, but for us, when you factor in the cost of specialty dining to improve the food quality, the entertainment, and the extra charges for some shows, those costs can add up. That money could easily go toward a cruise offering a higher quality experience.
Yeah, I can't help but compare it to the Oasis class ships with their Aqua Show, comparing them to the Carousel Lounge on MSC, which has, acrobatics and unique performances, but the Oasis class Aqua Shows, you get world-class divers, incredible technology and effects, and it's all at no extra charge. You just reserve a time and you go enjoy the show. The quality difference is significant, yet one you pay for and the other you don't. Now, we do know there are varying thoughts on this, so please share your perspectives in the comments. We're always open to hearing different views on the all-included versus the separate options approach to the dining and entertainment. Now, as much as we liked Ocean Cay, is it enough to make up for some of the other aspects of this ship with MSC in general? The answer is, we're not sure. MSC has been around a long time, and some of the complaints about MSC have been prevalent for years, yet they seem to persist. So realistically, if there was a specific itinerary at a considerably lower price point than the other lines, we would probably consider sailing with MSC again.
Yeah.
Time will tell if we'll sail with them again, but doesn't mean you shouldn't give them a try. And if you do, be sure to let us know how it goes. Now, that's it for our first MSC experience, but coming up soon, we have an exciting cruise announcement, one that we've been holding on to because we're so excited and we want to make sure that we're fully prepared before taking all your suggestions and thoughts on making this bucket list cruise the best it can be. If you've enjoyed this video and you're interested in seeing what we have coming up next, please like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe so we can take you along on all of our cruise and travel adventures. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you very soon in our next video. Thank you for watching. We look forward to bringing you our next episode. But in the meantime, be sure to check out these videos.